Good afternoon. My name is Ximena Carrasco, and welcome to this presentation about online assessment and system thinking of STEM educators and students. Thank you, Professor Judy, and all of you for coming today. I'm here to talk about the results of our research conducted over the last 2 years in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Master's in Education in Science and Technology. So without any further, let me begin. Before I start, I want to show you my hometown, Valparaíso, in my country, Chile, and the visual similarity with Haifa here in Israel. And also give the thanks for the generous funding from Graduate School, Gordon Center, and Tracot EAT Food. The general idea or question that arose at the beginning of this research and helped to develop and focus our research question was, why should the STEM educators be knowledgeable in online assessment methods and develop system thinking? As we all know, this pandemic has disrupted our lives and everyone's life in every way. For education, this has been no different. Educators and students have been forced to adapt and still do to these changes, with new challenges and opportunities appearing all the time. Educators have done so by modifying their teaching and assessment methods, the latter being one of the critical keys, if not the most important, affecting student learning and outcomes. This allows us to rethink education and our goals as educators. For example, in specific areas such as STEM, what means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The development of 21st century skills such as modeling and system thinking is becoming essential and critical for students now more than ever. The focus of the study relies on three main topics: assessment methods in which we evaluated Chilean STEM educators, case study which focused on the development of skills in STEM university students, and all this in pandemic times. And as a result, we obtained the main focus of this research, which is assessment and development of thinking skills in online environments. The main concepts in which this study was based are: online assessment is a method that enables the usage of online learning and digital technologies in online environments. Modeling is a process that seeks to outsource one's self-mental model created by others in some representation. System thinking is a natural process of thinking using system ideas. It's something that we do constantly. It's the relation among different components of the system, their relations, and the relations between the system and its environment. The research goals focused first to investigate how STEM educators assess their students in two ways: face-to-face before the pandemic and how they do in an online way during pandemic. Second, to analyze how STEM university students respond to online assessment with focus on two skills: system thinking and modeling. We raised the research questions that emerged from the principal ideas and were conducted under two main statements. For research question 1, respect to STEM teaching and assessment methods, we formulate 2 questions. 1, what methods do the educators prefer? 2, what changes do the educators identify relating to the methods they employed before and during the pandemic? And for research question 2, respect to STEM university students, the question is how do STEM university students respond to online assessment and integrate systems thinking into their responses? The setting on this research relied on first that was conducted as an exploratory study. Second, we evaluate 2 stages. The first stage, to answer research question 1, was conducted among Chilean STEM educators, and the second stage, to answer research question 2, among students at the Faculty of Education and Science and Technology and Industrial Engineering of Management. These students took a MOOC edX course called Model-Based System Engineering with OPM, which are online courses in online platforms. Also, this research was performed as a part of STEM Teacher Scientific Understanding, TPACK, and Assessment Knowledge, AK, in the COVID-19 context. OPM, Object Process methodology, is regarding the research question 2. This methodology is a conceptual modeling language. We use a collaborative web-based software in an online platform and is based on 2 main modalities of representations. One visual called Opm Diagram and another textual called OPD language. This slide is an example of an OPM diagram at the left, in which every element has a clear definition and role. And we have at the right the language or OPL that is strictly related to the diagram. The participants were grouped into 2. For answer research question 1, there were about 30 participants, all Chilean STEM educators, teachers and professors from different universities and schools. And for answer research question 2, we have the second group of 6 STEM university students from this university. The overview of group 1 is contained in this figure, where 11% of the educators have less than 30 years old. The tools we used for answer research question 1 at the first stage was through an assessment methods questionnaire and was done during pandemic, focused on 3 types of assessment, also included different kind of questions and one specific related to a list of thinking skills defined by PISA. Was used to understand perceptions and resources that educators used or uses for assess their students. To answer research question 2 at the second stage of this study, 3 tools were implemented. First, mini online lessons in which the data were collected through the development of system thinking in STEM students. OP Cloud, web-based software to know their modeling skills, and assessment task in which both skills were studied, system thinking and modeling. An example of reading included in the lesson was this one presented here, related to COVID pandemic, the virus, and the process in this case of transmitting, and the subsequent quiz performed by the STEM Ed students after each questionnaire. An example also of mini online lessons, it's each lesson included a video related to OPM, statements understanding OPM through the respective OPD and OPL, and readings, and several questions with different levels of difficulty, and also the creation of at least one diagram made by STEM university students. This slide is an example of an OPM diagram, in this case, the vaccination process. In blue is the main process, vaccinating. In green, the objects related to the process and the links that connected the objects with the main process. The elements of this diagram are the operand, the enablers, in this case 2, vaccination appointment and integrated information system, who is required by the process, the agent who handles the process, in this case the Ministry of Health, and the beneficiary of the process, in this case the person. All this together conforms the Opm diagram, and at the right are the statements, and at the left the OPD, the full OPD related to the diagram. We developed and organized the lessons in terms of the variables ST and modeling. ST was assessed in all 4 lessons and in quizzes 1 and 2. Modeling assessed in lesson 3 and 4 of the questionnaires and quizzes. The assessment task was designed to evaluate both skills, ST and modeling, into the participants' responses. The analysis was performed first evaluating the questionnaire to answer the research question 1, and also this questionnaire was adapted from a questionnaire that was developed for Israeli STEM teachers. This questionnaire focused on questions related to Chilean STEM educators' knowledge of 3 assessment methods: assessment for learning, online assessment, and assessment of learning. Also another that contains both, called assessment for learning in online environments. For the second stage, the analysis was done evaluating OPM diagrams, quality, and system thinking level of each student. The scores were obtained first for ST through the analysis of open and closed-ended questions in each lesson, and second for modeling through a STAR rubric, in which we evaluate the system function, structure, and behavior of each diagram made by STEM students. An example of the scoring is shown here. The findings for the first stage was done taking the responses from closed-ended questions with Likert 5-point scale, and we analyzed them through factor analysis, obtained these 6 factors. It's an example of each one are here in the middle of the table with the respective alpha Cronbach. Regarding the t-test, no significant differences were found in the factors when comparing the background age, professional experience, and academic level groups. The next table is highlighted the statistically significant correlations between the variables which have a positive correlation. For example, between the variables 3 and 2, the magnitude of association was moderate, and between the variables 5 and 4, we found a strong correlation. Also regarding the first stage, the findings of the first stage of this research, educational institutions have been proposing online assessment methods to overcome the critical period of the pandemic. In this sense, our result, as we see through these two bar charts, we can reveal that the use of online assessment was already taking place before face-to-face by the STEM educators in Chile. They were not systematic, or nor were they related to classes in an online format, but they were related to short quizzes or exit tickets at the end of a specific class with the use of an application like a Kahoot. The educators report that during the pandemic, they encouraged their students to be autonomous learners more than before they moved toward online learning. As we see in the bar chart, the use of teamwork and planning experiments decreased while the use of self-learning and question posing increased. Respect to the question, would you recommend your colleagues to start using online assessment? The 89% of the participants responded positively to this question. The responses were diverse in all senses and approaches, but are related to the advantages of doing it. For example, one of the participants wrote, "It could convince by highlighting its advantages. 1. Saving time in revision for the teacher. 2. On-site feedback to students. 3. Process support. 4. Review the student's progress history online. And 5. Diagnose alternative conceptions." Other responses were related to the use of technology. The findings related to the second stage, which responded to the research question 2, was related to the system thinking and modeling scores that we obtained. Our results for system thinking shown that the level improved over time. For modeling, we saw in lesson 3 and lesson 4 that the participants received a mean score of 78. And in the assessment task, which requires higher modeling skills, the participants' scores decreased to 65. An example of one student in the assessment task is there, which is the combination of the performance of system thinking and modeling skills. This assignment was the development of a questionnaire done completely by the student, in which were included scientific topics related to COVID-19 pandemic. In specific, the participant chose the process of vaccination. And we see here that these have scientific content digital and visual and textual components. The diagram is well done with all the objects correctly linked with the process. Also, were included basic to high-level questions and a variety of text and readings. Also, a more complex diagram was included with its sub-processes and their respective OPL. In summary, in these pandemic times, understanding the background of educators, such as their assessment methods through a questionnaire, is the way to carry out investigations, even more so if they are educators from another country, also with different educational, social, and cultural aspects. For Chilean STEM educators, feedback is considered the basis of assessment for learning, whether before or during the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Developing the modeling skills, which requires a deep understanding and internalization of ST concepts, typically requires longer periods of time. The discussion of this research were that this research explored Chilean STEM educators' characterizations of assessment knowledge in a specific assessment for learning and assessment for learning in online environments pre and during pandemic. Our findings showed that the educators were already assessing through assessment for learning in online environments before the pandemic, and the integration of system thinking through modeling in STEM students results in improved learning and thinking skills development even in online environments. For ST and modeling practices, the findings suggest that it can enhance student learning and the development of thinking skills in online environments. This research included participants from one country, Chile, but data was compared with previous research from Israel. This is one limitation. And the second limitation is in the two stages of the research, participants answered in English, which is not their mother tongue. For us, in Chile is Spanish and you speak Hebrew. Respect to the research contributions, understanding the assessment methods of Chilean STEM educators and for educators in general helps to identify and characterize how they master different types of assessment, both face-to-face and online. Is essential and contributes to the teaching and learning process in STEM disciplines. Know how the students integrate system thinking and modeling skills into their assignments. A possible further research is we can use this research to compare Chile and Israel with other countries, looking for differences and similarities with respect to the assessment methods used before and during pandemic. And also we have a recommendation that also this research may serve as a basis for recommending guidelines for improving educators' assessment practices and for the development of 21st century skills such as system thinking and others among their students. I would like to give my sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor Yehudit Dori for allowing me to cross continents and to be able to conduct a master's degree in this prestigious university under her experience professionalism, contribution to education, also for her continuous and dedicated guidance. The learning and experiences that I will take back to my country are immeasurable. The new educational knowledge acquired, the experiences and adventures in a distant land, which made me feel at home with culture as enriching and full of history as that of Israel. The professors, friends, and people from different countries and cultures that I have met have produced a significant change in my perception of the educational academic environment and of the world itself. A special thanks to soon-to-be Dr. Efrata Kiri for her support from the first day I arrived here in Israel and for her accurate statistical analysis. Thanks to Dr. Marina Tal and Roy Peretz for their constant support. Their comments, help, and information they did not hesitate to give me, which allowed me to present this seminar on time. Also to Dr. Ria Lavi, who always helped me and answered my doubts about OPM at the beginning of this research, and the generous financial help of the Irwin and Joan Jacobs Graduate School and the Bernard Gordon Center for Systems Engineering at the Technion Israel Institute of Technology is gratefully acknowledged. Many thanks to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Muchas gracias.